Anthony Oliviera to the conversation. He's an academic, a writer, and an activist who in the past has been critical of the way police have handled or mishandled this case, as it might be. Anthony, always good to have you with us on CTV. You and I have spoken a number of times over the past
Thank you for having
year
me.
and a half. So what do you make about this now? We have these 8 guilty pleas. What happens?
I don't think the guilty pleas were a surprise at all. I think that the mountain of evidence was so big. Bruce McArthur was neither careful nor particularly intelligent, and all it took was, unfortunately, he got very lucky having the Toronto police for his accomplices. But once that mountain of evidence was uncovered, it was virtually inevitable that this guilty plea would come through.
Now, you use the term accomplices, which you know is a loaded term. Give me your take on why that's what you believe.
The village told the police that there was a serial killer active, and the police ignored and mocked those claims for years, for decades. Nikki Ward and other activists have said that specific people are disappearing, fitting a specific profile, and nothing was done. And then as soon as an arrest was made, the police chief turned around and said that the community had not been cooperating. A manifest falsehood that was meant to spin the PR problem that the police now had. My concern going forward now with these guilty pleas is that the pressure comes off the police and the larger community problems they refuse to address more easily sweep under the rug.
Yeah, so let me ask you about that. Let's explore that for a moment here. This notion that because we now have this story, which will proceed to sentencing next week, and again, it's very expedited when it comes to the wheels of justice. Typically, they can take a long, long time, but we know that this sentence is in all likelihood going to happen next week. Your fears about, does that sort of get the police off the hook?
Yeah, I worry about, we have 8 victims. I worry that there are more, and that the impetus to pursue those cases disappears. The police reopened 25 cold cases going back to the 1970s of community members who disappeared or who were murdered. And every time one of those gets linked to the Bruce McArthur case, the police force is further embarrassed by their failure to act. And I worry, the only reason getting the police to pursue those is justice, and historically speaking, justice is not something the queer community is used to getting from the Toronto police.
In terms of your criticism, do you think that this was negligence on the part of the police? In other words, they didn't assign enough manpower to it, they didn't take it seriously, or was it more insidious than that? Was it intentional?
I think that there are systemic problems. I think that there is a simple problem with the way that missing persons cases are handled in this city. I think that it's gruesome to say, I think we were fortunate that eventually one of these victims to Bruce McArthur's unluckiness was connected to a family that was able to exert pressure, because until that was possible, the queer community could do nothing. I think that we're seeing a pattern of behavior from Toronto's police with the Tess Ritchie case, with the Elora Wells case, with their activity in Project Marie, that is quite historic, goes back to Operation Soap. I think that the Bruce McArthur case was a flashpoint for the way that Toronto police are comfortable treating the LGBT community. And I think they want to move past this as fast as possible by getting to march in the parade, et cetera, and producing the optics of healing and forgiveness when in fact they have made no overtures or systemic changes whatsoever.
Do you believe race was also a factor here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Andrew Kinsman, the final victim, was also a white man. He was a white man with a straight family who could exert those pressures, and all these intersectional reasons that Bruce McArthur was not a smart man, but he picked victims that he knew he could disappear. He picked street-involved people, and he picked racialized people whose backgrounds or whose family situations made wanting to suppress what had happened to them an active motive for not investigating those investigations. And Andrew Kinsman was sort of finally the straw where it became impossible to ignore what was happening. And immediately the police and their PR firm started spinning the fact that we had never come forward, when in fact, as long as I have been out in this city, we have known there has been a killer active in it, and nobody listened.
Anthony Oliviera joining us from Toronto, community activist, writer, academic. Thank you for this.
Thank you again for having me, Todd. Always a pleasure.